Clerk call roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Pickens, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Greg Adams from the Covenant Life Baptist Church in Fort Worth. Thank you very much for coming out today. We appreciate that. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and the gift of life today that you've given to us. Lord, we thank you for the joy of your presence. Father, we come today asking your blessings upon this council, this court today. Lord, we pray that you would grant them a wisdom that is beyond human experience and years. And Father, that you would just encourage and strengthen their hearts as they go about their task today. Lord, we pray that you would encourage them, Father, as they deal not only with the burdens of leading this county, but Father, just the burdens of living as broken people in a broken world. Lord, we thank you for all those who serve this county. Pray your blessings upon them. Father, we thank you for the joy of knowing you. Lord, thank you again for this time. And Lord, we pray your blessings upon them today. We pray these things in Christ's name through the Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Brother.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements as it relates to our agenda this morning. The first one is under the public hearings, which is item 8A. We're going to hold that particular item. We'll bring that back to you. Also under the administrator section, item 9A15. This is a CDBG program grant with the City of Saginaw. We will bring that back to you next week for your approval. Also,
So we're going to hold that for 1 week?
yes. And under the public health section, item 9H5, this is the eClinical Works interface creation with QuickBase. We're going to hold that and bring that back to you probably next week. Also, members of the court, you're going to have several different items in your red folder this morning. One is the first one that deals under the administrator section. It has a lot of different activities. One of the things that I want to talk with the court about and seek your approval at that time is a professional services contract with UNT Health Science Center as it relates to our vaccination plan. Also, you're going to have information that Kristen Camarino has put together for you on emergency rental assistance. There's a one-sheeter in there for you. And then also, when we get to the point, and I might do this now, there's a sheet in there dealing with Criminal Justice Division grants. You might remember that last week we had a conversation. Russell talked to you all about the fact that in the current proposed budget that the state has, that they have cut about $500 million, and that was mainly in grant programs. One of the things that we want to do is to make sure that whenever we bring a grant to submit to the state, that we tell you how much we're asking for, so that you're fully aware of that. There's a sheet that looks like this in your red packet. And there are a number of grants that we're asking your approval to submit for consideration by the state, and they're on consent. What we're asking for on those grants is $1.35 million. Our match on that is the required match is $336,000. Then we have some additional match. as it relates to the Sheriff's Office Victim Assistance Program of $141,000. This is informational for you all. It's something that we want you to be fully aware of because we simply don't know what the results are going to be from the state budget yet. This may be something that is a non-issue eventually, but if it is an issue, then you will probably ask, or at least ask to consider at least partial or full funding of these grants in next year's fiscal budget. So we wanted to begin that process. We promised you that we would keep you informed. Here is that sheet that begins that information distribution to you. And then finally, members of court, as we've done in the past, we're going to take things out of order today. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, when we get to the administrator section, we're going to go ahead and move the health report up so that we can have that. There'll be several of us that will be talking with you as that presentation moves forward, and then we'll then move into the administrator's item 1. Judge, I do think that we have several audience participation. I only have 2. Yeah, 1 phone call and 1 in person. Okay.
I was going to say several, so I mean, you mean 2. I understand.
I thought we had that discussion like 4 years ago.
Well, I was fixing to say it's probably been about 4 years, but JD would usually point that out, and he's grinning, so he's with me on this deal.
Several is at least 3.
Several's at least 3, and so I was fixing to say that you have some that I don't have down there,
Is
but
there anyone in the audience who would like to fill out 1 more audience participation?
now's your time. I'm just telling you.
Too late.
It is too late, but we could make an exception
We
so
only
that
have 2
Mr.
participation forms today, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Thank you for your accuracy, GK.
That's great.
Oh, before we go forward, I'd like to introduce, you know that one of the actions that the court took last year was to bring in-house the alternate dispute resolution services program. It is now operational. It's housed on the 4th floor, temporarily housed on the 4th floor of this building in our suites. I want to introduce Janet Denton. Janet is our new executive director on that particular program, and she has with her her management analyst this morning, which is Paula Chernovsky. I got real good at that, didn't I? I did. So
asking you to say something about Waxahachie.
So they're part of our team, and they've hit the ground running, and they are currently working with Kristen as it relates to the JP issue and the rental assistance program.
Tenant diversion program.
Welcome.
Ladies,
Thank you for the work you're
welcome.
doing.
And come see us. We need to get to know you.
Welcome aboard.
And they're on the 4th floor, huh?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that where we, never mind.
Yeah, that's not, yeah. Remember, you can't disclose that.
Okay, never mind. I guess they're not in that program.
They're not in that program, no.
No, they're not. No, we don't know what program you're talking about. No, they're not.
Yeah, I know you're not.
Okay, now we gotta get to
Moving right
business, I
along.
guess. So, court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 26th.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Congratulatory resolution, Commissioner
Yes,
Pickus.
we do. I'm not going to read all this, but we are going to, this is a congratulatory resolution to the Lady Eagles volleyball team with the international leadership of Texas, and they're based in North Richland Hills. This is a group of young women, 6th to 8th grade Ladies Eagle volleyball team. They won the state championship in their division, and we will be getting this resolution to them for a presentation. So I'll move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Allen, I believe you have a couple of announcements.
I do. First off is on this coming Saturday, February 6th, we will be having a pop-up COVID-19 vaccine sign-up at Benton Plaza in Arlington at 1818 East Pioneer Parkway. So please come to visit us between the hours of 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. in the food court. We will assist you with signing up to receive your COVID-19 vaccine. And very thankful for the partnership with David Dang and Benton Plaza. So again, that is this Saturday, February 6th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Benton Plaza inside at their food court. And then also, I will have to leave court early today because I have to head out of town for some continuing education hours. My colleagues here who have a very long tenure on the court don't have to worry about that, but I do. So if you see me leave, that's why.
As Commissioner Brooks laughs, and I think that we're all thinking, okay, we could make any number of comments, and none of which would.
Just don't.
Yes. That's the solution I think is best.
Sometimes it's best to just leave things alone.
Leave things alone. Again, first Tuesday of the month. Again, unfortunately, this will. I guess get us real close to a year. I guess next month, I don't think we did March last year.
I think we did March.
So I think April was the first one we missed, but we do have a number of folks, and I want to run our little video and our names at this point in time, so take it away. Good morning. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the restrictions that it's placed upon our meetings, I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to postpone our employee recognition. That is one of my favorite times of the month, and so I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this month, but I promise you that when everything gets back to normal or whatever our new normal is, we'll begin those again, and we'll make up for those meetings and for those months that we've had to miss.
Yeah, right.
Again, I want to thank you personally for what you do for Tarrant County, especially during this time when we've had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 virus. Our employees have always stood up for the test, and you've done exactly the same thing during this time frame. You're what makes Tarrant County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise our family. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting back to our routine of being able to recognize our valued employees on that first Tuesday of every month. Thank you. And our employees for this month are as follows. Maybe.
I did want to give a special shout out though.
I was just going to say, is Miss Tidwell down there? Well, then I can't tell her how much I appreciate the 25 years she's given us, but we've, Commissioner Brooks, 30 years. Yeah.
Seems like yesterday.
See, with that mask, you can't tell when his nose is growing. No, we recognize and we really are thankful for the years of experience that we have on this court, as well as throughout the county. And every year we bring in new folks, and a lot of times I'll come in here sometimes and say to them, you're joining a family. And we'll tell you that now, and you'll kind of think, yeah. But at about the 5 to 10 year mark, you really begin to say, maybe they knew what they were talking about. And by the time you get to the 20 or the 25 year, you're fully aware of that family attitude and atmosphere, and how much we do care, not only for one another, but also for all the citizens that we serve and all of the folks who come through Tarrant County and are looking for assistance I have never seen folks as eager to help one another out and to help the citizens in their time of need, whatever that need may be, as I have seen in the 24 years that I've been with Kent County. So, again, Commissioner Brooks, thank you. And Commissioner Allen, thank you, because you're starting your years in this family. And
Indeed.
we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
So, with that, I'll move that we receive and file the employee recognition.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any other announcements?
Yes, this was my shout out to Commissioner Brooks. One, I did want to congratulate you for your 30 years here with the county. And then this is the second day of Black History Month. And of course, you made history in being the first African-American man to serve on the court. You've made history in so many other ways. And so I just want to thank you for your steadfast work. I have really been honored to work with you, to learn from you. You know, I know I have a strong personality, and so we butt heads, but we agree to disagree, and where we can agree, we very much overwhelmingly agree. I could say that for any member of the court. But I just wanted to make sure that I've shared my appreciation for your work over the years. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Commissioner, and I tell everyone what a joy it is to serve next to you. I suppose we've got a mutual admiration society going, and I love it.
Today at least, right?
Well, we bump heads, but my head is harder, so.
I'm not going to touch it.
Mine's already been bumped. I'm waiting on it to heal.
I enjoy every minute of it, Devin, and thank you.
And I'll also just comment on the fact that the congeniality of this court and the way we discuss, and even though sometimes we just agree to disagree, but we're always willing to listen and find consensus, I think. And I think that's, again, one of the things that I most respect about this court. And again, sometimes we don't realize how fortunate we are. And I believe a lot of that came from the gentleman who sat in this seat before me. And I often tell the story that in the 10 years that I had the privilege of serving with Judge Vandegrift, there was only about 2 or 3 times when I heard him get after somebody, and I wasn't convinced when they left the podium if they realized he'd just gotten after them, because he did it in such a nice and congenial way. So again, it's a privilege to serve with all of y'all. With that, I will call to your attention the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Do we do a receive and file on the employee recognition? We did? Okay, great, thank you. Members of the court, if we can now go ahead and move to the briefing agenda, and we'll take up item number 1, or item A, which is the current and emerging health issues. Mr. Tenaja is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the court.
Benny, this is shorter than an hour today, right?
Yes, sir. I made it very short.
All right.
So we'll be very, very quick. Of course, cases are still increasing, but the numbers are certainly heading in the right direction. We're improving. I think we're adding about 1,500 plus cases today. So the total will be 222,000. We've got about 37 deaths, I think, additional today. So that's 2,277 deaths. And then hospitalizations are certainly declining. Now, on its own, all of this data is still pretty bad. I mean, we've got 1,063 people in the hospital, but that's a far cry from 1,450 just a couple of weeks ago. So we are definitely coming down hard on the numbers. 22% of the hospital capacity is utilized by COVID. So again, we're heading in the right direction. ICU numbers are getting better. They're not getting better as fast because people...
What was our high water mark on hospital capacity?
The percentage, I forget. I think it was like 30-something percent.
So
But the
would
numbers
come
were
right down.
1,450-ish on the total count. And then ICU numbers are not coming down as hard as we would like them to, but again, those folks are usually sicker, so it takes longer to get released out of the ICU. So we're at 215 in the ICU, which is still better. We were like at 270, I think. And then so we're at about 43% of our ICUs consumed with COVID-19. Bed capacity in the ICUs are improving. We were down to as low as 6. We're up to 42 beds. So that's a good number, you know, for a county size of Tarrant County. We've got good capacity on hand. TSAE, again, heading in the right direction. We're at 18.82%. The recent high was almost 28%, so that's almost a 10% drop. We're at 3,020, and I think we had crossed 4,000 in the TSAE area for people hospitalized with COVID. 111 beds in the 19-county region, so it's all seemingly moving in the right direction, and all of the indicators support it, so that's great news. Trends, as you can see, are declining. We had a peak during the week of 8th of January, and since then we've been declining. The only thing that seems to keep rising is the death counts, but that's going to happen for a little bit as it's a lagging indicator. But hopefully soon we'll start to see a decline on that as well. And then, you know, from last week to this week, there's just a little bit of an increase in the R0, or the velocity of the virus, but it's not enough for me to be worried about at this point. We're still below 1. That means we're infecting less people, so we're going to continue to decline. Here's all the trend indicators. Our testing rate is finally below 20%. We're at, I think, 18%. Still 1 in 5 coming back positive. On its own, it's very high, but we were at 30%, so relatively we've improved quite a bit. COVID-like illness came down from 15% to 9%, so that's an improvement. And our hospitalization charts, I mean, we've talked about it. Even the case rate is starting to improve. At a recent high, we were 920 cases per 100,000. That was 9 times the red zone criteria set. We're at about 548. It's an improvement. It's all relative. You know, if you look at it from an individual criteria standpoint, we're still very high disease activity in the community. That means we still need to wear a mask. We still need to socially distance. When our time is up, we need to get vaccinated. We need to do all the things, but all of those things combined, you know, having vaccines here, people participating, you know, holidays have gone by and people have stopped gathering with family gatherings and so forth, or large gatherings for shopping and all those type of things. You're starting to see the improvement in numbers. All of those factors combined are really starting to have an impact. So, you know, that is the way out of the pandemic. You know, these 4 things combined, that you stay away from others more than 6 feet, wash your hands, wear a mask, and vaccinate, are the sure shot ways to get out of the pandemic. So that's the disease outbreak update. And before I move on into vaccine, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay.
Oh, wait, I do have one
okay.
about
No problem.
just an update on that second strain.
Oh, yes. So yesterday I was on a call with the CDC. They found 400, I forget the exact number, but a little bit over 400 across the country. So certainly it's spreading and more is being found. Our lab is participating, so we're going to be submitting some samples through the CDC as well to see if we find anything. So far we haven't found anything in our data in Tarrant County, but it's just, it's probably here because it's in the metro area. So, I mean, I'm assuming that we have the UK variant. They found 400 plus across the country in 32 states. So it's here. It's just, you know, sometimes it's kind of hard to look for those things and see how far they've spread.
That's the Great Britain strain.
Yes, sir.
What about the South Africa strain?
No news on that so far. It seems to be very well contained in South Africa. And that's where a lot of the folks are worried because the vaccine efficacy seems to be a little bit lower against that strain. Pfizer did come out and say that their vaccine should work. Moderna is saying that they're actually preparing a booster against that strain. Not quite sure what the difference is because they're technologically the same. So we'll have to see how it all sort of
But you're
shakes out.
watching that situation.
Yes, sir.
They've got cases in South Carolina and now Maryland.
Okay. I hadn't heard of that, but okay. I'm sure we're a global traveler economy still, so it is easy to spread these things. And I think I mentioned to you there was an LA variant as well. We heard about it, and then we're not hearing about it. Hopefully it's been contained, but these things spread very fast. And the key message there is it is up to us as a society. If we don't do the things that public health is saying, the virus is going to replicate at a fast pace. As it replicates at a fast pace, it's going to mutate. That's just how it works. I've given this example many times. You take a winter jacket, zip up and down several times, invariably one time it's going to go wrong. That's how mutations occur. But if you take it slow and don't zip up and down that many times, the mutations don't occur. So it's a sort of a common thing. If the virus replicates too fast in your community, you're going to have variants emerge. Some are going to be good for the virus. It's going to mutate and get more efficient. And those are the ones that sort of survive and overtake and become the new problem. So here's the vaccine update. So this is our dashboard. We did release it in a live format yesterday at our county website. So the web address for that is tarrantcounty.com/COVID-vaccine. So it's on the vaccine information page. Now, I want to make sure people understand that this is a composite view of what DSHS is giving us and what we have from our own data. Neither data set is complete. DSHS data, even though it's coming to us every Monday, supposedly complete till that time, we're finding a lot of gaps in there. And it's a frustration of ours. So we're filling in the gaps with what we know. So it's the most accurate that we can present, but it is not the absolute true picture. So it's showing 160,000 people vaccinated in Tarrant County, which is between our numbers and their numbers is a composite view. But I can guarantee you that there are more people in Tarrant County vaccinated than this. It's just that we don't have the data to show that. My best guess would be we're approaching 200,000 at this point. Just looking at the numbers that are being presented in the DSHS data, they're running behind by several days.
But
So,
there are no stockpiles
no,
of unused vaccines.
not that I'm
in
aware.
Tarrant County.
Not that I'm aware. We've talked to several hospital partners. They're getting it out as fast as they can. We've heard bits and pieces about somebody may have held it at a doctor's office or things like that, but the ones that I know and I've checked, they're out. I mean, there's a dashboard that DSHS released. They've got a lot of red dots, meaning there's providers that are approved but no vaccine, and they've got a few blue dots, which they say there's vaccine available, but we know they're out because we've talked to them. We're one of them. So it's, I really believe that our community is doing a good job in getting the vaccine out. We've gotten it out very, very fast. So 160,000, as we know, about which 94%, almost 150,000, are Tarrant County residents, and about 10,000 were out of county. And then total vaccine given out, at least one dose, was about 127,000 people. And again, you can see the data gaps start to appear on that information. There were about 6% of the county that has at least one dose given, and then about 1% of the county, about 17,000 or so, that have completed their series. The numbers don't exactly match up because of the data gaps that are there. We don't have all the information. Their data doesn't have all the information. So it's a composite view, gets us close to where we can at least have an understanding of what's going on. It will get better as data systems and people catch up, but it is frustrating in the beginning not to have that information. And the maps on the left is sort of a zip code distribution of percentage completion on the vaccine, and on the right is city maps. And again, I've said this last time, it looks like Fort Worth's not getting enough. Almost half the vaccine is going to Fort Worth, being the largest city. It's just on the color coding and the underlying population basis, it's appearing that there's not enough happening there. Here's just the demographic distribution. No real major surprises there. We're still seeing gaps in race, ethnic uptake. African American community seems to be at 5%. Hispanic, Latino ethnicity at about 6%. So work ahead. Certainly we've got some concerted efforts going on in getting people signed up, and education efforts going on to make sure that the community is aware that this vaccine is available, it's safe. So all of that is underway, and hopefully we'll get some results with this effort. And then the final slide here is the registrations on how they're moving. So we're starting to see registrations from out of county now increase quite a bit. So we have over 500,000 registrations in our database. This morning, I think we were at like almost 515,000, and out of which 69% are Tarrant County residents, and then the rest are out of county. Total eligibles are about 81%, so they are currently eligible. Other folks means they're future eligible, because they're not ineligible, they're just not in the groups that are open right now. And so about 410,000 people currently, and as you can see, we've done about 160,000 as a county, and between our efforts, I think it was about 65,000 or so. So there's a lot of vaccination work yet to be done, and supply remains limited. Last week, we got our allocation for this week, which was 9,000 doses for public health, and we ran out of those on Saturday. So this week, we've been sort of looking at, we have second doses left. We've been looking at how much second doses we have, how much we can squeeze out, because we typically get our shipments on Thursday. So we've been sort of trying to front load, do some first doses and the second doses, in hopes that we will be bare bones thin by the time the vaccine comes.
Be careful.
Yeah, I know, and it's probably going to happen, so fair warning, we're probably going to run out and people will be mad. So it's just...
What's our no-show for second vaccines?
So second doses are better. People do show up. Yesterday we had a bumper day. We invited 1,223 people, and 1,208 showed up. That is a rarity. That's the first time that has happened, which is good news. Only 15 people missed their appointment. Typically, for second doses, our show rate has been about 80%. First doses, it's a hit or miss. We've had as low as 62% and as high as 80%. Can't tell. Any given day, it's just a flip of a coin on what happens. Weather is nice, they show up. But that's where we are. A lot of work to be done. So that's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I know you said the registration, 31% were from out of county. Of the people who are actually getting called and vaccines, what percentage of our vaccines are out of county?
About 6%. So about
6%?
6%, yes, sir. 10,000 people from out of county have been vaccinated.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And so this is, it will catch up, because once we opened up to other counties, it took a while to sign those folks up, and there was already Tarrant County people ahead in line. So it's going to take a little bit to catch up to those numbers, but eventually it will even out.
So, Vinny, did you have a question?
Go ahead.
I know that you're, I guess as of last week, you were sharing that the anticipated wait time was somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks. I know you're even hesitant to say that because you don't want people to just lock onto that estimation, but it seems like it's really more 5 to 6 weeks based off of what I'm hearing from my constituents. So will you kind of speak to that? I know a lot of this is obviously there are factors that are outside of our control, but it helps to manage expectations and hopefully decrease to whatever degree that we can the anxiety of people feeling like, well, maybe I got missed, and did I fall out of the system? I mean, these are all things I know that your team is handling, as is mine. So
yes, ma'am. So one good news is that we did launch that lookup feature. As far as I can tell, 166,000 people have checked their status since last week. And the email is, again, pretty generic, that you're either registered in the system, so that's a confirmation, and the estimated wait, it says, is 3 to 4 weeks, and that's our best guess scenario.
People are getting a confirmation number now.
Yes, sir. They were getting an automated confirmation number when they registered starting January 6th, since we had the first discussion here in the Commissioner's Court. We already had that going. Where the glitch happened last week was people before that, we were trying to sort of email them en masse and give them a one-time status update, and the database had a glitch. So we've had to go do it in small batches. Now, my understanding is we've completed that work, but we saw some emails coming this morning, no, I haven't received it. So we're looking at it again, making sure people have gotten their emails and so forth. So, but otherwise, it's working. I mean, obviously, 166,000 people went online, checked their status, so the system's doing okay. The wait time is a hard thing to guess on time at this point because vaccine supply is sort of inconsistent. We don't know how many sites we would open and get faster. So it's a kind of a hard thing to gauge. And then what is even harder to explain to the public is that the 1A category moves faster because there's less number of people there. There are healthcare providers, doctors, first responders. 1B category, where most of the general public fits in, yes, that could be a long wait because there's several 100,000 people in there and not enough vaccine. So it's best guess scenario is about 3 to 4 weeks. Yes, could it be 4 to 6 weeks? Possible. I mean, there's no good way to really calculate that given all the unknowns.
Okay, so I want to walk through the various steps because we constantly are getting phone calls. So if you registered after January the 6th, when you registered, you should have gotten an ID number.
Yes, sir.
And that ID number is what you use to determine, one, that yes, you did get registered, and that you're in the system someplace.
Correct.
Prior to January the 6th, we believe we've now sent out an email and a phone call. So we sent out an email first, and the email, the first set was, oops, we broke the system, we had to start over. So that's been confusing, but that's okay. I mean, we're learning. Every day we learn a little bit more about how to do things. So then after we broke the system the first time, then we said, okay, if we'll do it in 5,000 groups or 10,000 groups, then we don't overload the system, and we do that, and we wait an hour or so, and then we do it again. And so as of Friday, we believe that we have successfully gone through the 200,000 plus that had registered before January the 6th.
That is correct, yes.
So if you registered before January 6th, you should now have an email that gives you an ID number that you can then use to check to make sure, of course, I was going to say to make sure you're in the system, but if you didn't get one, then you're not in the system.
Right, and the email already gives you your status one time, so you don't have to go online right away to check your status because it's telling you you're registered and what is your status. It's that you just registered and there's no appointment, and what is your category, that you're qualified in a category or your status is pending. That means you're eligible in the future. It also tells you if there is an appointment in the system over the next couple of days. So if there's an appointment set, it will tell you that as well.
And it would also tell you, because here's the other thing is, I know that you on a weekly basis send out a certain number based upon whether it be THR, whether it be JPS, whatever people are requesting, that send us X number of people for us to then take care of. So if you send out 500 to JPS, and if you send out 7,500 to THR, once you move them over to them, they become the responsibility of those entities.
Correct.
So if you move, do you then tell the individual that you have been moved over?
Yes, sir. So two things happen. So when the move happens, we notify the entire group. So let's say THR says, give us 7,000 people off your list. We give them that list, and then the very next day we send out a mass notification that goes as a phone call, text message, voicemail, and email. It stops only when you respond to one, or it runs 2 cycles to get through notifying. And so that's one piece. The second piece that can happen is when somebody goes online and checks their status, it will say in the email, the clinic assigned to you is THR, and then it doesn't give you other information like about when is your appointment. There's a note in there that THR or JPS, whoever the clinic is, will contact you with your appointment information.
So once you have transferred them to JPS or THR, then it becomes JPS's and THR's responsibility to, one, communicate with you to tell you we have an appointment for this date at this location, and any questions from that point forward should be directed to THR and or anybody else who
Correct. Whoever's participating in that effort. Yes, sir.
And not only are they responsible for the appointment setting and the location determination as to where you're going to get that first shot, but then they're also responsible for the second shot in scheduling that appointment and that location at the appropriate time.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Because I think there's been a lot of confusion, and I think we may need to remind all of the people who we're doing that with that they should be solely responsible for those folks once they're passed along to them.
It's very clear to those providers, because we've had those conversations and they've said, once you give these folks to us, they get into our system as our clients, as our patients, and we will treat them just the same like we would have treated people out of our own system.
We might remind whoever it is that it's very clear to remind the folks below them that it's not so clear to.
Sure, I will pass that message along. Yes, sir.
Please.
And you're very right. The public is confused, but we've done the best we can. Multiple messages go out: phone call, text message, email. That you have been assigned a clinical provider, which is our partner THR or partner JPS, and future communications about your appointment will come from them. So other than that, I'm not quite sure what else. I mean, we use every opportunity.
And the other thing I want to remind people of, today is February the 2nd. I believe we gave our first vaccination in Tarrant County somewhere the week before Christmas.
Yes, sir.
So we're less than 6 weeks into this deal. We have vaccinated well over 100,000 folks just between you, THR, Arlington, Hearst, JPS. That doesn't count the nursing homes. It doesn't count the pharmacies.
Correct.
It doesn't count the other providers. So we've done an awful lot, and I can attest to the fact that when it comes time for your second shot, you're going to get multiple emails until you hit that confirm button or that cancel, because
That's right.
I knew I was going to get my second shot here last Tuesday. And it wasn't until I finally read the message that you kept sending me that I hit the confirm button just so you'd quit sending me those cotton picking messages.
I know, it gets irritating, I understand, but.
And it was
point is
about
to
the
get it
third
out.
or fourth one in before I finally got around to doing that.
Yes, sir.
So for those of us who sometimes don't follow instructions, that's the same look my wife gives me.
Just saying.
Sometimes you just gotta back up, but I know it's very confusing, and I also know that some of the calls that we've gotten in here now, in all seriousness, are from older adults who are just scared to death. And what I've said and what our office has done is, even though we know it may belong to someone else, they're scared to death. And we're going to do whatever we can to try to help them, if it means calling JPS or THR, or if it means calling public health. We're very limited because of the HIPAA, and we can't, we don't get, their ID numbers, and, we don't have a list that says, okay, we can tap into this. But I want to just, again, thank your folks, because I know that y'all you're answering as many questions as, you're answering about 100 times more questions than what we're getting in our office. But you're also very helpful to help us out when we call too. So.
Well, thank you, and I'll pass this along to the team, because they've been really just taking this on the chin, from every angle. But they know that this is a job we need to do, and they're doing it well. So I just appreciate you guys recognizing that.
And I had someone walk up to me this morning and thank us for the job that you're doing.
Thank you.
And your department is doing, and it's gotten to the point now where, unfortunately, most people recognize me, and that happens. It happens frequently, and I have to, what I say to them is thank you, and want to pass that along to you, because it is happening.
And I think we're doing an excellent job in getting the vaccines out. We just got to get ready to, when the surge or when the tsunami hits with more vaccines, which we all keep praying that it does, we just got to be ready to get it out.
Yes.
Vinnie, there's one more area in which we need to thank you. You have done a great job of helping us as elected officials and department heads to manage the close contacts that our employees have had with infected persons, the infections of our employees, to help manage the needs to quarantine, and information about when they can come back to work, where they can go to get tested. That's been a tremendous help to us in helping us to manage our staffs.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Vinny? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I've got questions.
Vinny, also, my emails are just 10 to 1 saying I had a great experience.
Yes.
Okay, and it's just amazing. So you're doing a lot. You're doing a whole bunch right, man. Keep it up.
Well, and I'll be happy to take all the kudos, but they really belong to our city partners, all across. We wouldn't have done it without their support. Northeast, a great example. 14 cities and their fire departments came together literally within a week. Yes, I get on calls since July. We've been talking to them and all that, but they did the work. And similarly, Fort Worth stepped up, Arlington stepped up. So it's a team effort, and this is how it will get done. I mean, we're an example for the entire state on how collaboration works. And, no one entity, I've been saying this, no one entity has the power to do this. We're all going to do this together, and it's happening. So thank you for recognizing that, and I'll take all the pats on the back for everybody, but.
I'm gonna go around and take it down those posters, too.
Yes, sir, thank you.
So a few questions that I have for you, and I echo everything that's been said, So I did want to get an update, though, on the sign-up translation in Vietnamese. Are we making progress on that?
We're making progress, but it's slower. I had this same conversation yesterday that whatever the slowdown is, I need it fixed because that's a gap that's emerging for us.
Yeah.
We're kind of falling behind. Now, luckily, a lot of our Vietnamese community does speak English well, so the sign-up rate's actually pretty good, 8% Asian, and the vaccination rate's pretty good. But again, we can't have that gap. We kind of got stuck that we need to go get a third-party app integration, and it takes a little bit to vet everything out. But it's been on our discussions almost every evening. There's going to be movement, hopefully next week. I'm knocking on wood that things don't get in the way about getting signatures done and getting the app integrated, but that's where we're heading.
Okay. Well, and I know we've talked at length about ways that, my office wants to supplement the efforts that public health is doing. So we're going to be having a series of sign-up events, and we're establishing those right now, including the one that we're hosting on Saturday. But of some of the concerns that have already been brought up in terms of what are themes in complaints is we still are getting folks that have really long wait times for when they're calling in. So, and I know that we're working on an effort to increase that capacity, but can you speak to that?
So, on the call center?
On the call center.
So there's a lot of movement there, and Mr. Manius can jump in and help on the big call center, but I know that you all approved an agreement last week with UNT. We asked them to move 20 of the existing assets that we had to help with the call center, so they've done that. They ran into a little glitch. They had an own internal IT ticket open to add a line that did not get added as of yesterday. So what they've been able to do is take our calls after hours and then during the weekend. During the weekday, we're still kind of handling that within public health, but we expect a resolution soon because we've done this with them in the past, and usually it's a couple of days, but somehow it kind of got stuck and they didn't get it done. So we should have a resolution there this week, and then, I don't know if Mr. Manius, you have another?
And Ms. South was going to report on that when we came to that section, but I'll tell you that, and I'll read from some of her slides. We have engaged budget and purchasing. We did an RFQ. On that, we received 7 responses. I think that we've chosen the vendor that we want, collectively chosen the vendor we want. That big center should be up and running within 3 weeks, which is a fairly quick time to have a major call center stood up. But that plus what we're seeing at UNT Health Science Center and the 20 that they're bringing over, plus we authorized an additional 10. Mr. Tanasia has some additional people in his office that also do the call center aspect. So I think that while it's somewhat slow moving, we are within 3 weeks going to have a major operation established.
And this is for registration?
So it will help with the registration, it will help with vaccine calls and any other calls that our call center is receiving. Once the UNT component goes live during the day when their IT ticket is resolved, between them and us, we expect to have 40-plus people answering the calls as an interim solution to the bigger call center. Yeah. Because these are folks that we've pulled out of different operations. If we can, get it to an actual call center, we will become what they would call level 2 support, where the more technical questions come to us. Because on our side, we got a couple of nurses, a few epidemiologists, a few vaccine people, different kind of folks answering different questions.
Are they, UNT, they have been doing our contact tracing. Are they still doing that also?
So we've tried to pull that off. I think we've left only 10 in their bucket that are doing contact tracing efforts. And on our side, we've peeled off a lot of folks. So there's a few that are helping with data entry. There's a few that are helping with the call center. There were some nurses that we've engaged in actual vaccination efforts. So we're already starting to transition folks that we can pull out of that effort into the vaccine effort.
So, okay. So from a contact tracing standpoint, I know we were spending a lot. Are we still doing as much in contact tracing? We talked a little bit about this last week, but are we now moving? As I look at some numbers, I think we had paid UNT about $2 million through December for contact tracing and about $400,000 for January. Are we continuing to do the contact tracing, or are we going to be spending that money for UNT to help us with these other things?
So they had about 30 people assigned to our contact tracing effort, and it's 30 equivalent because there's a lot of rotation with students. And so 20 of those assets as of yesterday or as of Friday evening have been moved into the call center component. We've left 10 for the contact tracing effort. I have a report with Mr. Manius that I sent last night. So once we've kind of massaged it and it's ready to go, we'll share that with you on where we are. So y'all can see the structure on how it's laid out. It's going to be sort of, we're going to have to do it very carefully on where we pulled from, because it is still a very important effort. The most value out of that effort is when we're at the low and rising and when we're declining. So at the peak, it loses its efficacy because that's not the right tool to use. But I don't want to pull everything out of there because we're declining, and that's where it's going to, again, really help lock it away. So, we're going to have to leave some assets there that can do the work.
And that's, I understand that. Again, that's what we were looking for is, okay, talk to us. But what it sounds like is you're, from last week's discussion, you're now moving some of those assets from contact tracing over to the registration thing. Once the big call center gets up and running, are these 20 going to just be additional folks in the in the call center, or what are your, and then also you said you had folks also doing this. Are you moving some of them in the call center, and is that only going to be temporary until you get the major call center put together, or what?
So once the major call center gets pulled into play, we're going to train them for the commonly asked questions and how to help people sign up. Our team will then remain as a level 2 support where there's more technical questions. So that may free up some assets to go back into epidemiology. It may also free up assets to actually go into the vaccine clinic operation. So like moving, because people have multiple skill sets. So if they are able to work in public health, they usually are good at data entry, they're good at phone calls, and depending on the skill set we've pulled, they might be vaccinators, they might be runners at a vaccine site. So there's gonna be, it's a hand-in-hand operation, so there's gonna be shifting back and forth of resources as they free up. So, as of today, I would say there's about 40 that we've already pulled out of our epidemiology operation and assigned into the vaccine operation as a whole, which includes call center, vaccine sites, vaccine data entry, all those type of things.
So the big call center we're creating, is it here locally, and will it be basically, sometimes it may be doing registration, sometimes it may be answering questions, sometimes it may be doing contact tracing, and is it one vendor that we're using, or are we trying to do this ourselves?
So I'd have to go back and look at the details of the RFQ. I don't know that they're going to be doing contact tracing, because that's still our people that will be getting those calls. But the general vaccine questions, general COVID questions, and I need help signing up are the main things that I remember off the top of my head that they would be helping us with. And Mr. Maney, if I forgot anything, you can.
No, in fact, that may be a question when Megan gets out here.
Sure.
And does her deal also. We'll try to answer that. One of the things that we're doing, first of all, two things. The first one is what you're seeing out of public health, and I think it's pretty readily visible, is that we have a cadre of resources that we're using, and we're shifting those resources to hit the hot spots and the workload increases that's coming up because of the virus. And so that's what we're talking about here. The second issue is that when we've already started doing some outreach into some of the hard to reach areas, and we're really we're pushing languages, Hispanic and Vietnamese, out to those areas. We're pushing them to go to a telephone or website. If they don't have a website because they don't have a computer, well then that's what these individuals will be doing. They will help those hard to reach population register and work with them and explain to them what they need to do in order to be fully registered and prepared to get their vaccination.
And I did see the update with all the videos and stuff that are in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, so that's great. Yeah.
Well, thank you for subscribing to our channel, because it will blow up your phone. Thank you. All right.
So, Judge, one of the questions you asked was if this was a sole vendor. It's a single vendor we're trying to contract with, yes.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
So, Your Honor, we are at a point where that we are ready to go into the administrator section. You have 2 audience participation forms. And
Several?
No. Several means 3, and we only have 2. And
Several of them.
Judge, you're whittling on that.
so, are you ready to do the audience participation form?
I am, as soon as I can find them, and I think I found them. The first one that we have is Robert Bucher. I believe he's in the back. So, Robert, come on down.
I'm Robert Bucher. And Ecclesiastes 10:2 says, "The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left." How long are you wanting to keep these illegal mandates going? In the 184-page 418 code, it states that the mayor, county judge, or whoever designated as the head of the disaster declaration can end it at any time. Even chapter 418.003, section 6 states, limit, modify, abridge the authority of government, proclaim martial law, or exercise any powers vested in the government under constitutional laws of this state, independent or in conjunction with any provisions chapter. I can almost bet the DA or the ADA did not know that. Let's talk about recidivism and crime. Crime is up, and you can bet these illegal mandates are the cause of it. Not just that, but other things too, but this is the main. The West Side has had a lot of thefts here lately in Fort Worth. Each one of these have brought back the fight between the have and the have-nots. A few of you talk about jail and prison reform and recidivism reform, yet you're still following an ill-informed tyrant governor. Theft is up, aggravated robbery is up, domestic is up, DUI, DWI, and PI is up. This is devices or mental strain that have put families and children in a lot of restraint. Yet you want to help the kids, victims, veterans, families. No one can survive on less hours than they were obtaining prior to the pandemic. Let's talk about common sense, which is lacking around the world and particularly here in this court. The flu is down because of the mask, but yet the virus is still up, according to the CDC. Funny how that works. So Dr. Fauci, who has admitted on YouTube and videos that he's been moving the goalpost on the coronavirus back and forth. A man supposedly of science, which science has a lot of variables, but they seem to miss that. Now he states double masking makes sense. Does not. And y'all will follow his coattail. Now, does that make sense to have a virus which is 0.0005 microns according to CDC, which nothing can stop that? But naturalized immune system along with vitamins, even budesonide, which has been around a long time, as high protein foods help with any kind of proteins. So we don't need anything that's in the mRNA to help us inside our DNA. Do your research on it. So why are you not screaming about the same thing when this vaccine has been killing people and injuring countless? Isn't that what y'all were screaming about when even one person was killed by the virus? For those who don't know, even fake Dr. Vinny states that the vaccine helps fight the virus, but it's not guaranteed you won't get it. It just helps to fight it when natural vitamins can do just the same and be less deadly. You can look that up, and you can look from any mainstream media doctors. Time to open this county up and get back to being examples around Texas. That's what we need. We need more example setters and less followers. So at what point in time do we do this? And I love this picture right here. I know that it doesn't show the mask, but this picture is of Governor Abbott who's pointing for beer to go. Imagine that. He wants beer to go, but no 51%ers can be open.
Thank you, Mr. Bucher. Next is Jonathan Guardian.
Hello?
Good morning, Jonathan. This is Judge Whitley. We're at the point on the agenda for audience participation, and you had requested a call. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Guardian. I live in the 76119 zip code area. 2 weeks ago, Dr. Tanesha reported that there have been issues with people receiving their appointments because of people completing the registration application erroneously for the COVID-19 vaccination. This proves our point that the county's current methods of accessibility isn't as accessible as it needs to be. Many people residing in the black and brown neighborhoods of Tarrant County do not have access to the internet, which renders the county's primary method of registration for the vaccine futile. Furthermore, from most recent reports, call center wait times are still over an hour long, which of course would discourage any person from completing the registration process over the phone. Furthermore, we have yet to hear of any plans to make the vaccine accessible to people in Tarrant County Jail custody. Tarrant County Jail has been leading the state of Texas in most deaths among people in custody from COVID-19, with 5 deaths. At the height of its numbers, the jail had 80 prisoners in custody who tested positive for COVID-19, and 81 jailers who tested positive for COVID-19. People in jail custody are among our most vulnerable community members. We once again state our demands for our county commissioners' courts in regards to ensuring black and brown community members, as well as prisoners in Tarrant County Jail, have access to COVID-19 vaccine registration. increase COVID-19 vaccination outreach towards neighborhoods in Tarrant County that are predominantly Black, Latino, or other hard-to-reach communities in the form of flyers, large signs, billboards, announcements on radio and television stations, grocery stores, pharmacies, gas station, convenience stores, religious groups and organizations, public and private schools, universities and colleges in various languages. Increased translations on Tarrant County's COVID-19 vaccination online sources into languages pertaining to Tarrant County's hard-to-reach communities. Create a plan to reach those who do not have access to electronic communication. Place information in other languages in grocery stores, pharmacies, food banks, hospitals, health clinics, and place information in different methods that would ensure that this information is communicated effectively. Creation of a finalized plan for making COVID-19 vaccinations accessible to Tarrant County jail prisoners. And finally, creating resources to educate Tarrant County jail prisoners on COVID-19 vaccinations, which should be available in various languages according to the jail's population. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Okay. Members of the court, we can now go to the administrator section, and we're going to take item A1, and I'm going to ask Ms. South to come forward and make her presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Not afternoon this time. So I will be brief again. And we'll start with our pillars. There were no new updates on our pillars this week. I did want to report that last week I had talked about Fort Worth getting out of the testing business, I think at the beginning of February. That's actually not going to happen until probably mid-February. So just wanted to...
Will you raise the mic?
Sure. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll try to speak louder. And as far as vaccination centers are concerned, all 4 are still operating. And there's really not, there's new numbers. So as of February 1st, again, it's just a snapshot. I know Vinny's numbers were probably a little different this morning. But there's 160,141 doses, vaccine doses, with public health administering 62,188 of those. As of January 31st, JPS had administered 23,939 doses. I did not check that again this morning to see if that number had changed.
Megan, let me ask back on the testing.
Sure.
I thought that the Texas Department of Emergency Management were doing most of the sites for the testing.
So Tatum took over the 7, it's my understanding, Tatum took over the 7 permanent located, the sites that were permanent. And then the city of Fort Worth, David McCurdy was the one, I think, who told me that they were going to be the ones dissolving those remaining sites, that just the city of Fort Worth was operating.
City of Fort Worth was maintaining some roving sites, and you might remember that's the contract that we entered into with the City of Fort Worth, where we would pay 60% of the testing, and they would pay 40%. When we went through that process, the City of Fort Worth said that they wanted to end that contract at the end of January. So now they're extending it for a couple more weeks.
February 12th, I think is what they're saying.
But all the big sites, the ones that...
They're still being operated by Tatum.
Tatum has taken over our sites, and they had originally been running some additional sites themselves.
Okay.
So the roving sites, those are the ones that are like at the community centers and places like that, right?
I'm sorry?
The roving sites were the ones that were like at the community centers and, okay.
That's correct.
I think there's 18 total.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this is the rental assistance slide. So this is Kristen's. These are just the various statistics again. Noteworthy is that as of February 1st, 1,492 applications have been processed for a total award of $5,599,602.02, which is an increase of 172 applications since last week's presentation. So they're working hard on that. Also in your red folders, as Mr. Manius had mentioned, there's a one-sheeter from Kristen that I think Commissioner Allen had asked for information last week. That has all of the COVID-related rental assistance that are county-related. So if you have any additional questions about that one, Kristen can answer those afterwards.
Thank you.
Next is the call center. So I did just receive some information. I know y'all have already had this discussion, so I'll just reiterate that as of now, the call center has had one vendor that's been identified. The negotiated points were completed yesterday for the contract should be here within 48 hours. And then as far as the availability of the call agents for that contract, there should be 25 agents available within 10 days of receipt of the PO, and then they can handle up to 1,800 calls per day. And then an additional 25 will be added within 45 days, and they should be able to handle the estimated 4,000 to 5,000 calls per day.
Is that what we're getting right now, is about 4,000?
Yes.
So the 25, when you say agents, those are people who are going to be manning the phones and
Correct.
taking the calls?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and maybe this is this is what will get us up to the 4. But then, in addition to those 25, the folks from UNT or the folks from public health will be also in that call center answering?
That I'm not sure of. I think that the plan would be to transition them away from that and have the call center answer the majority of the calls. Lisa or GK can correct me if I'm wrong.
And like I was saying earlier, Your Honor, that we intend to make them what would be level 2 support. So we have to kind of work out how they get the call transferred back. But that would be the idea, that if the call center folks that are general call center can't answer a technical question, that they would punt it back to public health or UNT, because between the two of us, we have the technical know-how about the disease and vaccine. Call center folks will be mostly trained on just FAQs that are common.
So who's going to do the registering of the people that are calling in and say we need to register?
That would be the goal, to have the call center do it.
Okay, so you're telling me that we're bringing in 25 initially. How many are we going to move up to?
45.
45.
Yes, sir.
And that'll happen, you're saying the 25 will occur in the first couple of weeks?
Correct. 25 would occur within the first 10 days from receipt of the PO, and then additional 25 within 45 days.
So we'll end up with a total of 45.
Correct.
And they should be able, you're saying on 1,800 calls per day? So
1,800 calls per day, and then that's the initial one. The estimated calls that we're receiving is 4,000 to 5,000 currently. So they're estimating that those 45 people can handle that call volume.
And then what would be the goals for the wait time? Because I'm hearing, when I call, I'm 80th in line, or I, was waiting to talk with someone for 2 hours. So what are some of those kind of baseline goals of what we're hoping to achieve?
So, some of this we're kind of developing as we go, but
Sure.
I think a reasonable wait time would be less than 15 minutes. Again, once the resources are in play and how much training they need, it will kind of depend on that. We have worked on a few things, stuff that you mentioned. We didn't know that there was a reset automatically in the system, that after every hour it resets you in the queue. So we worked with IT to take that out. I think it was every 1 hour. They moved it to every 4 hours. And the longest wait time, which is unfortunate, has been over 3 hours. But people put us on hold. So we're working on other features too. There's a callback feature that's not here. I think there's an upgrade happening in March. So there's a lot of things in the background that are going on that should resolve this. But again, once the call center's here, we are going to give them a target of less than 15 minutes hold time. Lesser is better, obviously, but
Sure.
We're going to start there and then kind of move it back up.
Good, very good, thank you.
Okay, so 1,800 a day divided by 25 people initially is 72 per person. And if you multiply that times 45, that means we're on track to get 3,200, and that basically says we're going to do every one of those calls in about 6 minutes.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
I agree with you. But if we were able to accomplish that, and if it were awesome, then that means we're only going to do 3,200 when we know we're having 4,000 to 5,000.
Correct.
So I'm not sure 45 is going to get it.
So on these contracts, we wanted to make sure that they were scalable. So if there was a need to bring more on, because we simply don't know what those, we think it's going to be 4,000 to 5,000 calls. We may be able to handle some with existing personnel, but that contract is a scalable contract.
Correct.
And so we need to bring more on, then we're going to bring more on. We didn't want to bring a whole bunch on and not need them, and because of the cost on that. And so that's what our strategy is.
So the 4,000 to 5,000 was a projection, not an actual.
Vinny, how many, is it an actual or what?
It's an actual number. IT can pull it off of our jive. So I don't have an average volume, but lately when we've checked, some days 5,000, some days 4,000, so it's in that range.
So what's going to happen is that we have 30 people from UNT that are going to be assisting with these individuals that we've moved away from testing or from contact tracing to this particular activity. So as I said before, we're moving our resources to make sure we can address those. If we need to shrink those resources, we will. If we have to increase those resources, we're going to do that also.
What is the, I mean, in setting up with the RFQ, you know, you're saying you're shooting for a 15-minute, no longer than a 15-minute wait. Is somewhere in this vendor's contract that says you will put enough people in there to get it to the point to where it is not longer than 15 minutes?
Okay, so the actual specs required the 15 minutes. So in terms of the number of agents, that is going to be dependent on their volume, being able to handle the volume of calls with that 15-minute requirement. So as of now, the vendor that has been chosen thinks that they know they can ramp up with 25 people now. Obviously, they're going to have to hire more, so they're going to hire another 25. They think they can handle it with 50 people. If they can't, within that 15-minute period, they'll get more call agents. But that is a requirement, the 15-minute time frame.
And how long do they think it takes to move from the 25 to the 50? And
the 25 initially within the first 10 days, and then within 45 days, they'll have 50 on staff.
okay, so there's no way they can make that any quicker, because we're already saying we need to be at 50, and so what you've just kind of told us is it's going to be 2 months before we could get to 50.
So one of the other things that they're working on is the callback, so that that the vendor will also have the ability, if it's going to go beyond 15 minutes, that the person that's on there can do a callback, request a callback, so they don't have to stay on hold, that then they can call them back if it's going to be a little bit longer at the onset. But hopefully, the point is it's supposed to be 15 minutes or less.
Are they going to work longer than 8 hours a day? Because what we're saying is,
It was a 7 to 7 contract.
it is a 7 to 7 contract.
7
so they're
a.m.
gonna
to
be
7
working.
p.m.
Was the 1,800 based upon a 7 to 7, or was it based upon 8 hours?
That is the actual call volume per day. I don't know, Vinny, as far as your 4,500 right now, 4 to 5,000?
Oh, yes, that is currently during the regular 8 to 5, and as of Friday, we were able to go, I think 7 to 7, because UNT is helping us. I'd have to see what time they start in the morning, but in the evening, they're going till 7. So after 5 p.m., it switches over to UNT, and then we didn't have weekend available. Now we have had this weekend available, but once the UNT call center goes into play, you get 2 lines. If you pick one, you come to public health. If you pick the other, you go to UNT. Both are working together. Now UNT is going to run 7 days a week for us, and our folks will drop off on the weekend.
Well, and obviously this is just one part of combined efforts, so hopefully as we continue to get the FAQs and other things out there, then it'll cut down on people calling to ask the questions or calling to double check their registration status and things like that, right?
Yes, and that idea I kind of latched onto early because we prepared the FAQs to train our UNT folks. I have sent it out to all our partners because all of their offices were getting the same questions, and hopefully that will sort of stem the tide. Because they were having to just redirect to public health. Well, we don't know, let's send it to public health, and we just didn't have the capacity to handle. So now they've been given the FAQs, and it should sort of start to balance out. Thank you.
I will just say that,
go to the 25 extra real quick, because again, if we're talking 1,800 for a 12-hour shift, or even 1,800 for an 8-hour, telling them we'll call them back
we're not gonna call them back if it's after 12 hours. We're not gonna call them back till the next day.
So I will
And-
say that the vendor was picked, that was part of the evaluation process, is how fast they could get full speed as far as staffing. And so, I mean, there were some that were out there to 2 months. We couldn't wait. I mean, not even getting started. So believe me, that was the evaluation, is trying to get this up and running as fast as possible with the knowledge that it may be a little bit slower in the first 2 weeks and then ramped up to full within, hopefully 30 to 45 days for the full volume to get to that 15 minutes. And the thought was that before we start, this way we're in place, before we start opening this up to the general public when we're really going to have the high volume.
You better hire them as quick as you can hire them.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Because I'm hearing 2 months before we can even get to the point where we can handle 3,000 or 3,200 calls, and we're getting 4,000 and 5,000, and we haven't really thrown it open yet. So,
Yes, sir. Any other questions on call centers for now?
Thank you, Megan.
The next couple are the grant update and the spend update. So this slide didn't change a whole lot from last week. I did want to note that the 2 lines under the notice of funding for the HUD money, the first two, the $2 million and the $3 million, those are actually to be approved today. So you'll notice next week those will come off of that. Any questions on the grant update? Okay. And then last is the spend update. So this slide we did change a little bit around this week. I do have budget.
She's back here.
Okay. So we wanted to make sure that we were accurately showing or reflecting the remaining funds that were available in this last column over here, which we weren't actually showing this amount, I think, on the previous slides. So you'll notice that $25 million down there. We've also added the call center and estimated cost. You'll notice a bunch of numbers down at the bottom. We just wanted to make sure that we were including all of the contracts that were out there kind of floating around at the moment and all of the estimated money that is to be spent on those, so that you all have an accurate idea of how much money, how much funds we have remaining. Are there any questions on this?
so you're estimating we have 25 million left right now?
Yes, sir.
And does that take into account the money that we have allocated to the jail and to other public safety dollars, with that money going to the GR? Or is that saying, once we put it over in the jail, that's money that we've utilized and we're not accounting for that?
She's coming.
Here comes Joe.
So I think you were asking about the salaries of the presumed that are in the law enforcement and public health. And the auditor's office have moved over the cost for 2020, but 2021 is still the CARES money that we received, and we are working out of CARES. That is none of the salaries for 2021.
In other words, we have not reimbursed ourselves for the expenses that we were allowed to claim under the CARES Act.
That's
For
correct.
2021.
For
But
2021.
For 2020, how much did we reimburse ourselves for?
Approximately $16 million.
So that's 16 million.
Mhm.
Freed up 16 million in general revenue,
No,
okay?
because 6.2 of that was over in public health.
Which goes to,
It's in public health, in TO 400 right now.
okay, we're gonna have to go a little bit deeper. So on the 2020 budget, year that ended September the 30th, you're telling me that we took $16 million of our CARES money and reported that as expenses that we paid to public health and we paid to the jailers.
Correct, 10.2 or 4 million, I don't have off the top of my head, but approximately that amount was in 2020 general fund, correct.
And so that would, had we not done that, then that would have been an expenditure from GR.
That's correct.
Now, what about the 6 million with public health?
They're a special purpose budget, and it is in their special purpose budget fund.
But it's still part of the CARES money that we got initially directly from the federal government.
Yes, we expensed that salaries, those presumed salaries to CARES.
And so over in public health, they have $6 million sitting someplace that would have otherwise been spent had we not allocated that expenditure from the CARES money.
That's correct.
So that 6 plus the 10 is 16.
Correct.
And is that 16 included in the 25?
Yes. It's included, that's why it's down to 25.
Well, no, it wouldn't be down to 25 because what I'm saying is we've got 16 million that we would have spent in GR had we not allocated CARES to that. So we've got $16 million in GR that's not included in that 25 right now.
We have 10 million in the general fund, approximately 10 million in the general fund in 2020.
That's right.
Which
And
we have
6
not
million
recognized. Yes, that is correct. The way you're saying it is correct.
Okay.
So you take the 25 and add the 16, the 10, and then the 6.2, because I like to make there's a distinction.
You can make the distinction, but there's still 16 million.
That's correct.
That we've got that adds to that 25 million in order for us to have been in the same position or to have been in the position that we would have been in had we not gotten CARES money.
That's correct.
I think the only issue with that, Judge, is that since that was expensed in 2020, that it would have been something that the 16 million would be something probably we would consider an excess cash carry forward.
That's true. I don't disagree with that one bit, but we have $16 million more in cash carry forward as a result of the fact that we took 16 million from our CARES money and spent that instead of the 16 million additional money that we now have in cash carry forward.
That is correct, and there are some steps that would have to take place to recognize
I understand that we got steps.
I just wanted to it's just not there immediately for.
It takes a vote of 3 to make it available.
That's correct.
That's all I needed to. But that's what I want the court to understand.
But it is there somewhere.
It is there. And that 25 million is really 41 million. And again, it can be spent, 25 of it will be spent some on COVID related and as would the 16.
I think the one thing that we're trying to do here is to make sure that you realize for FY21 the kind of monies we're looking at, because we have not been notified if anyone is going to give us money specifically, except maybe in CDBG related funds, to help the vaccination process.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is we don't have 25. In my mind, we have 41. It'll take a vote of 3 or a vote of the court to say we're going to take 16 million of our cash carry forward. And when we see our financials, I'm going to predict, Ms. Tidwell, that our cash carry forward is going to have been up by about 16 million more than what we originally thought it was going to be when we started the year out.
Again, not in general fund.
That's fine. Let's not confuse it with general fund.
But it'll be there.
Because this conversation can go a lot deeper yet if we really wanted to.
Yeah. But I just want, I mean, that's what I'm saying, as we approach vaccinations, as we approach everything that we're talking about, call centers and everything else, in my mind, right now, we've got,
It's 41.
we got 41.
That's all that I have.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. So is Kristen going to be up later to talk about this? Kristen, do you want to talk about it? If you could, very quick.
Good morning.
Hello.
Judge and Commissioners. So yes, in your red folders, you have a chart that shows you all of the COVID-related rental assistance funding that we have at the county. With the one caveat, the TEDP TRAP, I have not confirmed with the auditor's office that that's in the bank, but it is pending the 1.15 million. The contract has been signed and it's pending. So on this chart, you'll see the source, and if you have a question about which those are, what they mean, I'm more than happy to share that with you. The amount available, so if you look down, for instance, to CRF, that's the amount that remains from the 10 million that was assigned to rental assistance. The eligibility criteria, there are three main categories of eligibility criteria that we look at. Income is one. Whether or not it's COVID related, which for purposes of this chart, these all require a COVID relatedness, and whether an eviction notice is required. So as we're moving forward with the multiple programs that we have and working to get updated applications out for a March launch, we will be working on a tool, a screening tool, that all residents in Tarrant County, Fort Worth, Arlington, and Tarrant County can go to, answer 5 or 6 basic questions, and they will be related to household size, address, and then income, COVID relatedness, and whether they've received an eviction notice. And that tool will then send them directly to the application they need to fill out, directly to the correct jurisdiction. So if they're an Arlington resident, they'll be sent to Arlington's applications. Same for Fort Worth. And then for Tarrant County, it will send them to the correct application within these listed. If they are not COVID related, obviously we have programs that are ongoing and have been for years that can serve them. And most of those residents are aware of those. And then at the end, you see the assistance period, which is the amount of time we can assist them. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
What's the significance of the CRF part being highlighted? Is that because we've already reached the end of it?
That's right. Okay. And so we don't yet know what the total amount available will be in that funding category until we close out the remaining payments or complete the remaining payments. But it is not currently an active application.
But that is extended to the December 21, or is it December 2021?
So our ability to obligate CRF or put CRF into use has been extended to the end of 2021. However, the CRF-funded rental assistance program application portal closed on December 9th, and we are working to wrap that up. We have not reopened that application portal because we still need to complete those 2020 rent approvals and payments. And the new program that will be most similar to that program will be funded with the emergency rental assistance funds from the federal government through the stimulus bill that was passed in December. So that will be the most similar program, and we hope to begin that one in March.
Okay. But anything that we have left over could be thrown into that.
It could be, or it could be, and we can bring this back to you at a future date with recommendations, it could be used for individuals who don't fit any of these criteria in any of these other programs, but still qualify, due to COVID relatedness. So we can discuss that at a future date if that's something that the court wishes to do.
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, it would help for us to get through the rest of with the CRF program to see what's left, and I guess in learning more and getting more guidance on the the latest federal dollars as well. I think that would be helpful. Would you just spell out the acronyms, and then if you could send it to me, or I guess to all of us, but
Yes.
I think I know what they all mean, but you know, acronym
Yes.
soup happens very quickly around here, so.
Yes, I'll follow up via email with all of you with more information on those.
Are there areas in your mind that there are real needs that we have not been able to address because of regulations or requirements put in place or over some of these dollars?
I think there are a couple. One that our team in community development is looking into and has reached out to peer cities about, and that's individuals who are living in short-term rental facilities such as hotels and motels. That there's a need there, and we are actively looking into our ability to fund those types of situations. The second, based on this chart, but one that I think we can address with CRF, would just be individuals whose area median income exceeds that of these other program qualifications. And so I think, to Commissioner Allen's point, that's one thing we could look at with CRF, the remaining money. The other thing, and we found out from the state of Texas on Friday that they may be addressing, is mortgage assistance. Most of the funding has been geared toward renters. The state of Texas on Friday released a NOFA, a notice of funding availability for a Texas Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program. It's my understanding that each of Tarrant County, Fort Worth, and Arlington, or a nonprofit who serves those areas individually or combined, can apply directly to the state for that funding. And so that would be something that we would need to coordinate as a county. We just received the information. I have reached out to Lisa Martin in Human Services, and so we're really trying to understand the best way to move forward, given our internal resources, to get that money out to residents.
And Kristen, how much did they say that each of those entities would be getting?
So up to it's between $200,000 and $500,000 per jurisdiction. So each of Tarrant County, Fort Worth, and Arlington. If one regional provider or countywide provider were to apply, they could apply for the total of 1.5.
And that was for the mortgage?
That's mortgage specific, yes, sir.
Okay. I might ask that you maybe put together some thoughts or recommendations regarding those first two things that you indicated.
Okay.
That would give us some sort of a idea of what just, some of the need might be in those areas.
Okay. I'll do that. Any other questions?
Just generally from the call center, has your staff shared that people are concerned about paying their taxes?
I have not.
I mean, because I know this is rental
heard
assistance,
that
but
question.
that can still come up, right? Because you
Sure.
ask one question and, that can open up other things, but.
I'm not aware.
Real estate taxes or income taxes?
Property taxes.
Property taxes.
Yeah.
I'd actually, let me recant that. We have had a couple of landlords who are eager for their payments because their property taxes are due. Yes, sorry. In that context, yes, a couple of times that's come up.
Okay. Thank you.
But what we do not have on the tax-related question is that someone cannot simply apply to receive and the reason that they need the funding is because they need to pay their taxes.
Right.
They were very clear with the CRF funds that you couldn't do that.
The CRF, is that the mortgage?
That coronavirus relief fund, so that's
Okay, so
that's a
CARES Act.
So, let me walk through this and be sure I understand. Most of the renters, it's going to be the landlord that'll be paying the taxes. So it would only be in the mortgage, and I don't think we've had a mortgage program that we've looked at thus far. And so in the mortgage program, it's probably, if they're able to pay their own taxes, then they're probably way down they're not having to escrow. And if they are having to escrow, then their taxes have probably already been taken care of.
Yes,
Right.
and I have to look into it a little more, but a lot of it's going to depend on what type of mortgage they have and what other remedies have been available to them, whether they have a federally backed mortgage or not. Because a lot of, there have been provisions in place by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, et cetera, to cover a lot of those owners. So again, once we look into it a little bit more, the qualifications that are going to come through the state program may address some of that, as far as what can be paid and what can't through the assistance.
There's
But
various
Judge, it
stipulations.
is probably true, more likely than not true, that because of the various moratoriums on evictions and the associated non-payment of rent, there are probably a lot of landlords out there that are in bad shape in terms of paying their taxes
And
and
that's why I
other
asked the question,
expenses.
even though I didn't specifically say the landlords, but they are clients of the program just as renters are, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
If that's the case,
It's
then,
all
yeah.
part of the same fabric.
It is.
You're right, if that's the case, and we know it is, hopefully that will stimulate the landlords to get into
To
the
take
rental
the
assistance
money.
program,
Right.
so that they can receive those back payments.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
So we have one action item as it relates to this particular agenda item. We sent you, let me start over. Several weeks ago, UNT Health Science Center came before us and delivered or presented a plan, a vaccination plan for the county to move forward. And the Commissioners Court agreed in principle that that would be a good plan to implement. Staff was charged to work with UNT Health Science to develop an overarching agreement where that they would simply take total control of the vaccination process and guidance and oversight. We've been working for a little over two weeks, because it was 2 weeks ago that they came before us. And I will say that there has been a very strong effort that was made by both the Health Science Center and the county. Unfortunately, we're at a point now where that type of a structure is not something that we can agree to. And so what our discussions with UNT is if they would enter into a professional services contract so we could take advantage of the expertise of professionals that they brought to the table initially on this plan to help the county move forward in the execution of that plan. And so what we have before you today is a professional services contract with UNT. And I think it's an excellent contract, quite frankly. When you look at the resources that we are going to be getting, and I'll go over those in just a second, the pricing on this is $25,000 a month. The length of the contract is through the end of September. And so that would make a total amount not to exceed $200,000. So what do we get? So there's a scope of services that you will see in that agreement. We sent that agreement to you yesterday. It's also in your red folder this morning. It pretty much picks up everything that we believe that we need to look at. Plus, it has a additional clause where that we can work on other items that are mutually agreed between the two parties. And in return, what we will get, and that's under the service costs, which is Exhibit B. You might remember Dr. Trent Adams, Sylvia, that we will get her services 4 hours a week for the duration of the agreement. They've added a new member, Dr. Tammy Beckham. If you do not know who Dr. Beckham is, I would strongly encourage you to go and Google her. She is extremely impressive. She is a veterinarian by training, has worked with Texas A&M, was the dean of the Kansas Veterinarian School, has worked in disease and in infectious disease and control, very strong in strategic planning and operational consulting. She has delivered big programs, and something that we look very forward to her participating with us. She will actually provide us 20 hours a week services for the duration of the agreement. And then David Mansdorfer, you might remember that he's a gentleman that came to court also. David's very strong in strategic planning and communications, and he will provide us with at least a minimum of 8 hours each week to work on the project. So we're going to ask that you approve that professional services agreement. We're going to report back to you, obviously, as we have for the last year, on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and to show you how we're continuing to implement the plan. We have implemented more of the plan than one might think. We have done some outreach, which has shown to be successful in the hard-to-reach communities. We need to strengthen that area, and it's specifically mentioned in this. Judge, I know that you're interested in, as we all are, to expand the number of vaccination sites. We are moving forward to bring online a mobile a mobile drive-through vaccination site within the next 2 weeks. We had some discussions with a private vendor that I thought was substantial yesterday, where they have the ability to stand up these sites. Also, more importantly, they have vaccination vans that can go out into hard-to-reach communities, and they're very successful in that. Hopefully we will negotiate a contract and have that sometime this week with them. Our goal is to stand up at least 2 to 3 more sites initially. And the good thing about the last vendor that I talked to you about, they will provide the manpower. So it's moving forward with the assistance of these 3 individuals and their support staff from UNT. I believe we can move a lot farther down the road. There may very well come a time when we're going to have to ask you to maybe engage another firm to help us do provide greater guidance and control over our processes. But as we've always said, this is something that is continually unfolding in front of us, and we believe that this will create greater flexibility for the staff to respond to those issues. And so with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. At the conclusion of those questions, I am requesting that you approve this professional services agreement.
What we were initially after was a partnership with an organization that could take over the whole vaccination effort and run with it for us and free us up from that responsibility to do other things. UNT came up with a plan which was exactly the plan that we needed. It met all of our needs. It shows the way to vaccinate the citizens of Tarrant County quickly and with equity. I am disappointed that we were not able to reach an agreement with UNT to implement their plan. But their plan is still a good one, and they are willing to consult with us and help us to implement the plan ourselves and or with others. I think that's a step in the right direction. I would still like to see us find that organization that can step in and take over this whole vaccination effort for us. But this consulting contract will help us to move forward and perhaps bridge to that sort of arrangement.
I share
It's not ideal.
No, and I shared Commissioner Brooks's, we had problems with contact tracing. We entered into a deal, and I think UNT has helped us significantly in that regard and helped us in that area. You have said many times that we don't have the staff to implement a lot of this stuff, and that's why we're going out. And so I feel like right now, as I read through the cover letter on this, Dr. Sylvia Adams agrees to allocate 4 hours each week to work with the county on projects as necessary. So I see it, I guess you indicated, and maybe I misunderstood you yesterday, but that we would pay them based upon the time that they spent. This implies that we're going to pay them $25,000, and as long as we have enough work for them to do, they will spend 4 hours, 20 hours, and 8 hours. But that if we don't engage them in that, and they don't spend the time, we're going to still spend the $25,000. And also, you indicated just a minute ago that they were going to provide support staff. And nowhere in here do they talk about anybody other than these 3 individuals being available to consult with us. I would much rather have paid them a whole lot more money to implement. We've used them and they've done great. And I really appreciate the work that they've given us where they've implemented and actually overseen that work. But what I see happening here is we're still going to have to go out and find somebody to implement, and then we're going to say to them, here, we want you to implement, but here's the plan you got to implement, instead of saying implement however you feel is necessary. Here's a guideline that we got that we think is very good, but ultimately they're going to operate and implement, hopefully, the plan that they want to put together.
Well, if we find an organization that is willing to come in and implement, then this is our plan and this is what we want you to implement. And it costs what it costs.
I don't disagree with that, but they may have some suggestions.
Well, yeah.
We're not going to tell them this is the only plan you can implement.
This is a baseline plan that we're pleased with.
What we liked about UNT, or what I liked about them, is that I thought they had a great plan, and I was excited about them implementing their plan.
I agree with you.
Who do they, if we go with this plan, who do they report to?
On a daily basis, they'll report to me.
Okay. On a daily basis. Okay.
So let me
I
address.
think we will get real value from this arrangement in terms of guidance on where and how to set up new sites, the production of marketing and outreach materials to hard-to-reach populations, and that's something that we sorely need right now. And I forget what the other deliverable is, but I think we'll get real value from this contract, and it will move us forward. And if we indeed find another organization that is willing to come in and take over the entire operation, this has a 30-day out clause. So I would move approval of the consulting contract.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Again, the concern that I have is knowing how many irons in the fire that Vinnie and GK and everybody has, and whether or not, this says with the county on projects as necessary. I don't know what we're asking. If you don't call them every week and say, here's what I want you to do, what are they going to do?
Our goal is to set that up so that we are working every week on this, which we have been for God knows how long. Now if is it 4 hours this week, 3 hours next week, 5 hours the week after that, I really don't think that we're going to have any type of problem working in partnership with UNT, because that's how our relationship is. And when we put this together, we put this together in good faith to maintain that relationship. Quite frankly, if we get to the point where that we just can't do this, and we may very well get to that point, I fully expect UNT to say, you guys need more help, you need to get more resources. We can come back to the court at that time. I'm also hoping that eventually, that as we go through this and mature that plan and begin the rollout, that UNT may want to pick up some more. We may ask them to do more than just this. But this was a very basic professional services agreement that we could bring to the court. We think it's a very good way to move forward and answer some of the questions from some of the court members of, why aren't we doing anything more? We are.
So if they're not going to come down and talk to us on a weekly basis, so we can expect a report from you on a weekly basis as to what's going on?
You do get a report from us on a weekly basis. If we need to add more to those reports, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Well, let me just say right now, and going forward, I want an idea of what's going on each week for the $25,000 we're spending.
Very good. I do need the contract, though, in order to begin that.
Any other discussion?
Just one more thing. Hopefully, we will get to the point with UNT where they will feel comfortable coming in and implementing the entire deal. That's my hope.
Well, and I agree with that. I mean, we have asked them to do it, and I think they've done a very good job on the things before.
Let's continue to talk with them.
But at the same time, I want us to continue to look for someone to implement this contract. Or to implement the vaccines, because the whole side of this is 2 weeks ago, we were looking for sites, we were looking to enlist people and to train people on doing vaccines. We're 2 weeks down the line, we're no further along, and I believe that in any period of time, we could be given twice the vaccines. I communicated just a few minutes ago with Andy Eads, who is doing 10,000 vaccines a day now at Texas Motor Speedway. They got 31,000 vaccines this week when they had requested 15. If we had gotten double, I'm not sure we would have been prepared to put them out. And this is the point. I mean, I keep hearing, okay, now we're looking at maybe Wilkerson Grimes, maybe now we're looking at DFW, maybe now we're looking at some other location, but we're not ready tomorrow if we get those vaccines.
We intend to stand up our next site within 2 weeks, actually within about 12 days.
And Bowling Center's down, what, 3 days this week?
Bowling Center's down because the resources that we had been using at Bowling have been transferred out to Texas Motor Speedway. I remember what Vinny said when he made his presentation. The dosage that we had received for this week to go all the way through Friday, we've already consumed. And so if we get extra vaccines, JPS didn't get any vaccines this week.
I think they got 1950.
Okay, the emails that I received, that may be second shots, but not first shots.
That was first shots. According to the state, they got 1950 this week.
Okay, let's check our text messages and we'll see.
The reason for trying to enter this type of relationship in the first place was so that we could get ready when the vaccines arrive en masse. We may have lost a little time in our effort, but we're moving steadily forward. And I don't think we should get discouraged and stop trying.
No, I mean, and I would echo what's been said, and I understand your concerns, Judge. I would say, obviously, we can pursue, two different tracks at the same time. We can walk and chew gum.
Yes.
And it is an iterative process, and so if we have UNT who is, right now, at least willing to commit to this, then it's a start. And because what's the alternative? The alternative is, everyone who has been working tremendously hard continues to do so. I mean, we're risking burning out everyone. And so we need to increase our capacity, and it may seem small now, but the capacity is there to grow as long as we're good stewards of the relationship. So, and that takes, everybody. So, can we go ahead and vote?
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have on item number 2, Mr. Schaffner is here to address the court.
Russell, your timing is impeccable.
Good afternoon, Judge Commissioners, and thank you, Mr. Manius. We are here to do a follow-up resolution from our court discussion last week regarding the addition of one district court to our legislative package in working with the state Senate and House to hopefully get that passed this session.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell?
I have 2 items I'm asking the court to consider. The first is to approve the release of the $182,320,000 of collateral as outlined in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And our other item, we're asking you to receive and file the quarterly investment report for the period ending September 30th, 2020.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Ange?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That mic was clear over my head. The other item that we have is a request to approve some salary administration guideline updates. I will say the majority of these are minor language changes, or they're changes that you've already made through the budget process or some other process. I don't plan to go through all of this in detail. There are a couple items I want to highlight because they are changes from when I spoke to you all last year. I'm sure you remember every word of that conversation that we had, but the ones that are highlighted on the document, that's the list of changes. I want to touch on those just real briefly. Before I do that, does anybody want a paper copy of those, that document?
I read it and I didn't find anything
Okay.
disturbing about it.
That's good.
I mean, it was mostly cleanup stuff anyway,
It
right?
is cleanup.
It is very much cleanup. With that, do you still want me to go through them, or you just want me to?
Not really.
And I actually don't have any questions, so.
Bonus, then.
Move
Quickly,
approval.
quickly. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you, Ann.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Vinnie?
So Public Health has one item for your consideration, and that is a data use agreement with the Texas Institute for Surgery for our informatics syndromic surveillance program.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
Melissa?
Hey, Melissa.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
We have one item for your consideration. It's an award recommendation for RFP number 2020-211, the purchase of criminal court docket display and case location for criminal courts administration, awarding to Infax Incorporated in the amount of $33,147. And if approved, we're also requesting contract approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I believe we have some interlocal agreement. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes, I have an interlocal agreement. I want to say it's with the City of South Lake. Is that correct?
Nope, City of Hurst.
Okay, different week, huh? And I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the interlocal agreement with the City of Hurst. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, have these been approved by the DA's office?
It has, Commissioner.
I move approval of item 9M2, A through D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move to,
Yeah.
that. Claims including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Russell, do you have any more legislative issues?
No, they'll usually do
Okay.
Judge, Commissioners, a very quick legislative update, just to make sure you all have the latest information. Senate redistricting hearings have begun, so they started earlier this week, and they'll go throughout this week and part of next week. Those are virtual, and you can participate online. The Senate Finance will begin meeting. They have an organizational meeting at the end of this week, and will begin meeting next week in the following 2 to 3 weeks. And then a House committee assignment should be out later this week, just as an FYI. And then the State of the State, last night the governor issued his State of the State 5 emergency items, and those are expanding broadband access, looking at how cities and counties, local governments fund the police and potential restrictions on public safety funding, changes to the bail system, election integrity issues, and providing civil liability protections for businesses who remained open during the pandemic. So those are his 5. There's some other ancillary items that he mentioned, but those are the 5 key ones. And I just want to remind everyone that the governor can at any time during the first 60 days add to his list of emergency items. So with that, that ends my report, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
There's a lot of bad old stuff in there.
It is the legislative session, so we get to work through a number of opportunities.
I'm familiar with it.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Russell. That will recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempt under section 551.071, 072, 074, 076. She just was loud. Well, but she, she jumped a little bit. Having returned from our closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned.